back in a
shuffle and
minute.
tap dance a little bit. Okay, well, let's do more questions. Who writes genre fiction, fantasy, science fiction, or that kind of thing? All right, who writes literary fiction?
I do know.
Oh, okay.
Only two of us will do it.
Literary fiction doesn't fit in a particular genre. It tends to be more concerned with like people problems,
Internal.
philosophies. It's internal.
Very rarely
Those of us
fist
who don't like
fight
it
or
call it
murder.
evil meaning.
Well, there'll be a fist fight or two.
Reflections. Yeah, a lot of emphasis on beauty of the language as well. A great mix. There's a great mix of audience. Going to be a great mix of panelists.
You didn't say children.
So,
Children's.
Children's.
oh gosh, yes. Who writes children's fiction? I'm sorry, that's probably a lot. How about young adults? Cool. Okay. Yes, I'm sorry. That is an important. It's an important genre because after all, you start getting the young readers, and then that brings them up to be the adult readers. So, yeah. I'm sorry. That was a good.
Well, Karen's so, and she's not.
That's right. Yes. I'm just looking at this direction. All right. Well, let's begin in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom, fantasy, horror, and a little of anything else that happens to interest me at the time. And I'm your presenter's aide today. Glad to present to you the Catholic Fiction Channel. Hey, yes. So, starting at the very end, we have Declan Finn. I'm not going to give the biographies that will be here forever. So, Regina Doman.
Yay!
Arthur Powers.
Yay!
Erin Cupp.
Yay!
Ann Lewis.
Yay!
Karen Kelly Boyce.
Yay!
And your moderator for the afternoon, Ellen Cash.
Yay!
I'm going to step out behind the podium there in case you can't see me. Okay, so we're going to just go right into it. Ready?
Yes.
All right. First question is for Regina. How can we develop a larger readership for Catholic fiction?
Well, there's actually
Everybody
very.
hear Regina?
Can you hear me, everybody? All right.
Maybe we don't need the microphone.
It's fine. Yeah, I can always shout. I've got 9 kids. It's a simple answer, but it's not an easy answer. Because the answer was Catholic fiction, right?
Yes.
We need to change the buying habits of Catholics. Because basically, when Catholics have a question about their faith, when they have a problem to be solved, when somebody's ill, when they need to buy a present, they go to their Catholic bookstore. When they want to be entertained, when they want to hear a good story, they go to Blockbuster, they go to Netflix, they go to Amazon. They don't go to their Catholic retailers because they're not used to finding entertainment options at Catholic retailers. So really what it is it's a very simple answer. You have to change the buying habits of Catholics. We have to make Catholics aware that they can look at Catholic outlets for Catholic entertainment. And we also have to make them understand why they should value such entertainment. But for a lot of people, honestly, it is a no-brainer. I mean, the culture wars are heating up out there, and most Catholics who love their faith are aware that, you know, Pixar is still putting out good movies, but they worry about what their teenagers and their kids are reading. So I've always said a smart strategy would be to start with the markets that Catholic retail outlets already serve, and where those customers are at. So I would say I would start with children's fiction. I would start with middle school fiction because that's 9 out of 10 they're going to buy a first communion gift or a baptism gift. I would try to fill the needs there. And then I would go into soft women's fiction because women are the customers who, you know, go to a lot of these outlets. So I would do romances with soft, flowery covers that kind of look like the same sort of inspirational books that these women buy. So I would try to fill that need. Unfortunately, most of us would rather write murder mysteries and thrillers and things like that that don't look well in a Catholic bookstore. So I mean, that's essentially the question. How we go about it is another answer, you know, it's another, we can have a discussion on how we could go about changing the buying habits of Catholics, but really that's what it comes down to. That's my opinion.
Okay, great.
Can I add just one word?
Absolutely.
I think it's really important to support the presses and the magazines that publish
Yes.
fiction. St. Anthony's Messenger publishes a short story in almost every issue due to the fact that the editor has fought for that. But it would certainly be helpful if people would write letters to St. Anthony's Messenger and thank them for the fiction. Because he's fighting an uphill battle. Every month he's got to justify, why do you want to put fiction in here? Dappled Things is a literary journal that I think every Catholic writer should subscribe to. It's short stories, it's essays, this is where young writers and even old writers like myself do their experimentation and learn. And we need to support these things. We're part of a community, and if we don't support the things in our community, we should be buying books from, you know, Chesterton Press, from all the other presses that publish fiction, and we should be going into our bookstores and asking for those books, and
Yes,
which I
that's a
do.
big thing.
And so I think we have to start among ourselves and then encourage other people to do that.
Yeah, and especially send your readers there.
Yeah.
Send your readers, just say, hey, can you buy this at your Catholic bookstore? Can you tell them thank you for buying the book there? Gilbert Magazine also does short stories as well. American Chesterton Society's magazine also does fiction as well. So.
I got the largest Catholic bookstore in the Ottawa Valley to carry my books because I had readers go in and ask them for Ellen Gable books. They had no idea who I was. But I just said, you know, I had them going in almost weekly until they finally said, can you order some of your books? Anyway, that's a great idea. Okay, next question is for Anne.
Oh. It's a whisper. Okay.
How about you don't want it?
No, it's okay.
What do you believe to be the most important elements of Catholic fiction?
I think themes. When you tell a story, you want to tell a story. You want to tell a really good story. Good Catholic fiction really doesn't totally hit you over the head with the Catholic elements so much as it tells you the truth thematically and touches your soul. Maybe makes you, you know, see and understand and hear the truth in a way that speaks to you. I think that is the most important element, is the thematic elements of truth is Catholic, would be Catholic fiction. Just to give a quick example, I mean, the Watson Chronicles, I had a gentleman read it he's divorced from his wife. His wife is Catholic, but he divorced his wife. He's not Catholic himself, but he read my book, The Watson Chronicles, and he said, and he wrote me, he said, oh my gosh, I've never had a book make me cry. This is a guy. And he said, this is what people need. They need this beauty. So truth and beauty, of course, if you read Keats, is the same. You know, they tell the truth. So that truth and that beauty, I think, is the most important element.
Okay, Karen, do you have anything to add?
I always go to characters. I may forget, the story, but I'll never forget a character that I fell in love with. And so when I write, I always develop the characters first, and then they tell the story. Usually they take over. But in Catholic fiction, we have to have multi-dimensional characters, not just, I think Regina was talking about this morning, not just good guys that are really bland. We want to show their character, we want to know how they got there. And
Karen, speak up.
oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, maybe we can give you the.
Yes.
She's a quiet speaker. Channel your inner Jersey, Carrie.
Okay. I'm trying not to talk with the Jersey accent.
That's part of your
I believe that you need to fall in love with a character. And when you fall in love with a character, the story just flows. And you never forget a character. And I think we as Catholic writers, like Regina was teaching today, we have a tendency to make our good characters very flat. Well, I don't like a flat character. I like a character that trips or falls or really does something, that's struggling with something. So I would recommend that when you write your characters, make them real. Don't make them saints. Don't make them I love Amy.
If I may,
Oh, sorry.
just 4 words.
Go ahead.
Get the details right, because that's really the only thing that some days, for lay people who are not in this room, it's the only difference between us and Dan Brown.
Okay. So the next question, we're going to start with Arthur. Do you think any elements are off limits in terms of Catholic fiction?
Simple answer to that would be no. I don't think any elements are out of bounds. I think you need to know why you're writing. And I write literary fiction, which tends to examine just about anything there is. But you need to know why you're writing and for whom you're writing. Clearly, if your book is aimed at hardcore drug addicts, it's going to have a different vocabulary than if it's aimed at second-grade catechism students. Okay, I mean, and I think those. But you got to talk to people in a language they're going to hear. And if certain subjects, first of all, you shouldn't be writing about anything that you're not comfortable about writing about and incisive about. But I think you need to. There's nothing that God doesn't touch in this world. Our church teaches about everything, and sin is part of the human experience. So I think that you have to treat it respectfully. I think you've got to treat it out of your faith. I think you've got to be a prayerful person, but I don't think there's anything that's just out of bounds at any time.
Okay. Erin, do you think there are any elements off limits in terms of Catholic fiction?
Definitely not. And I'm actually, gosh, I can't believe I'm going to be this bold. I'm just going to disagree with something that Arthur just said. You said that don't write anything you're not comfortable with.
Well, that's true. That was a misstatement.
Okay. Then we're on the same side, so it's
Yeah.
good. I think that we can learn so much and show so much of God's love to others through our writing by writing about something that does make us uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, the series that I'm working on right now is the main character is a fallen away Catholic who's been on birth control for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And she's butt up against people who might actually think that's wrong, and other people who are dying from being on birth control for 20 years. And that's really hard for me to write about, because I had a point in my life where I had to choose what path do I want to take, and I didn't take that path. I took the exact opposite. So I think as writers, as Catholic writers specifically, we can love our enemies by writing them. Mm-hmm. And not only will that add to the richness of the conflict in the story, but will also, on a more personal note, add to the richness of our lives as well. You can't hate somebody whose head you've had to be in for however long it takes you to write a draft. You can't hate that person. And that's what we're all supposed to be about.
Regina?
Well, those are two very good and intelligent answers, and I'm going to disagree. I'm not going to disagree, but I'm just going to play a little bit of the devil's advocate. And here I'm going to take off my writer's hat, because as a writer, I agree with both of you, everything you said, and you said it very well. As an editor and a publisher, I will say it depends, because I kind of, a lot of, for me, okay, when I'm a writer and I'm writing a first draft, anything goes. I will put any sort of curse word, I will put any sort of graphic this on there, I will just do that. But then when I'm done, I have to say, okay, who is this story for? And the fact is, if somebody is going to publish with my press, I do not sell to hardcore drug addicts. And I do not sell to people who've been on birth control for 20 years. I don't. Do you know what I mean? Like that's just not my audience.
You do have to know your audience.
You have to know your audience. And so that's where I find a lot of times I am reining authors in, or just saying, okay, I see what you're after, but let's figure out how to say it so that you don't get 20 bad reviews on Amazon that are going to stop any distributor from touching your book. And then I don't have to get heat from publishers. I said, because the fact is, we're here to entertain people. And if we're just throwing dirt and smut and glove and the F word in their faces, and they're not entertained, the problem is not that they are too, they are not sophisticated enough to understand you. The problem is you're not entertaining them. you know? And if you're not entertaining them, we'll go do something else. Do you know what I mean? Because I mean, the fact is, we're entertainers. And so it's like, so that limits us, but it also empowers us. Because it tells us what we are out to do and what we're not out to do. We're not out there, our end goal is not to heal our psyches or to get even with our mother who hates us. You know, our end goal really is to entertain people whom we love, who are other Catholics who we love. And if you don't love your audience, you shouldn't be writing for that audience. You know, so there's a level to it. But I mean, this is all to say that, yeah, I probably would, if a book was really treating a difficult subject, pornography or whatever, and it was written in the right way, that I know it would meet that audience, and that audience would hear them, even though that audience was 20-year-old homeschool girls, I would publish it.
I think there might be a difference, because the question is, any themes we should not deal with. I think no limit to subject. Treatment, however.
Yes.
There are lines you do
yes, the
not
devil,
cross.
no, the angel is in the treatment, yes, of how we treat it. Because really, and I find that unlike Protestant audiences who do say no sex, no drinking, no drugs, no whatever, no good characters allowed to light up a cigarette, you know. The Catholic audience is not like that. The Catholic audience is very forgiving as to subject matter, but they are really hard on treatment. The question is not whether or not it has it, but how it's treated. And they are actually, there's a lot of leeway even among those long skirt wearing, mantilla laden rosary carriers. They'll read a lot. Do you know what I mean? They are very broad-minded, but it's all the treatment. So.
Andy, you have something to add?
No, basically I said it's not the subject matter, but it's basically, it's a treatment, it's basically, there are lines you do not cross. Yeah, in terms of my treatment. Yeah.
I did want to mention that, I guess it would be a year and a half, no, more than a year, almost 2 years ago, I was approached by an author, and the author happened to be my favorite author, who is Dina Hunt. I don't know if anybody's familiar with her.
Yeah,
I was approached by Dina. She's not here, so I can talk about her.
She has spies, so be careful.
It's being videoed, so maybe, hopefully this won't go on YouTube. So you'll hear me talking about her, but brilliant writer, and she won the Ippy Award last year in religious fiction for Treason. Excellent book, please go buy it. And I mean, I don't have any vested financial interest in you buying it, I just think it's a great book. The Lion's Heart, she submitted that book to me. She had self-published, but the self-publisher was going under, or something was going on. And she said, and I'd already read it and left it a glowing review. She said, would you be interested in publishing it? And I really had to stop before I said, yes, please let me publish this. Because I had to talk to my husband, who is 50% owner of our publisher, and he had to read it. And he got to the end of the book and he said, if this isn't edgy Catholic fiction, I don't know what is. It deals with same-sex attraction. And here's the blurb. The blurb is, Paul has never known love until he met Max. Okay? And it actually is a Catholic novel, believe it or not. So we did publish it. Anyway, and the treatment is extremely well done. And she writes flawlessly. She's a wonderful writer. Okay, next. This is for Declan.
Yes.
What inspired you to write fiction with Catholic themes and characters?
Because I'm Catholic? No, I'll give you a for instance, well, two for instances. My upcoming novel is a vampire novel, and I'm looking at all of the dreck that is out there in the vampire genre. And can I have a crucifix, please? Can I have communion wafers, holy water, anything from Bram Stoker's Dracula? Because when they're missing, it sets off my alarm bells. It's, oh, because everyone is going to secularize vampires and make them sparkle, and they only sparkle when they're on fire, period. With the primary series that has eaten up about 10 years of my life, the Pius trilogy, that's P-I-U-S, like the Pope. I went to a Catholic college, St. John's, so adjust for values of Catholicity. And I did a graduate paper, just one, on Pope Pius XII. And it got me mad, because one of the things we value I am the way, the truth, and the light. Truth! And that was the one thing, every time I looked at somebody writing about Pius XII, truth was the one thing that was missing.
Yeah, yeah.
And I figured, hey, if Dan Brown, who, I'm sorry, I don't care if you just write off his history as bad history and, oh, it's good fiction. It really isn't. I'm sorry, I went through the prologue and like, this is garbage. So if Dan Brown can do it, I can do it. So, I hope I answered the question
Yes,
somewhere.
you did.
You did.
Absolutely. Okay, so Erin, what inspired you to write fiction with Catholic themes and characters?
Well, as I said, anybody who's in our lay orders talk this morning heard, I didn't have any sort of conversion experience until I was a young adult. So I considered myself a writer long before I considered myself Catholic. So they just kind of grew up together. And when you're a fiction writer, as Declan was saying, yes, it's a made-up story, but the whole point is to write truth, veritas, truth. And Catholicism is all about truth. So I keep saying that I can't take Catholicism out of my writing any more than you can take pee out of the pool. It's just kind of there. Henry Rollins says that.
Treatment.
But I mean, that's my goal anyway, to have it be so intertwined that it's just kind of there, but also not like poking out at you like you forgot to trim the tag off of the dress you just bought. You know what I mean? It's just supposed to be there and organic, I think.
Okay. And Karen, what inspired you to write fiction with Catholic themes and characters?
I think that an author writes who they are. Like Erin, I came back to Catholicism after being away for many years. I went to Catholic school as a child and came back to myself, basically. But I can't write something that doesn't have meaning. I know an author by reading his book because there's so many parts of him in that book. But specifically made me write very Catholic is because I'm very Catholic. And
Can't take pee out of the pool.
no. And you can't as far as that threw me.
Sorry.
But as far as writing very Catholic, when I was a child, I read a lot of great books. I was a reader before I was a writer. I think to be a writer, you have to be a great reader. I didn't have any formal education in writing, but I read voraciously. When my daughter went to school, and I read the books they were giving her, I was horrified. It was no longer Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys. It was Judy Blume. It was all kinds of disgusting, smutty work. And I didn't specifically start out to write children's books, but I'm very happy that I do when I see what's out there. And so I think you have to write who you are. And that's why I write Catholic, because that's what I do.
Anybody else want to comment? What inspired you to write fiction with Catholic themes and characters? All right. So, who are we going to go farther? What keeps you writing Catholic fiction?
Well, I find that and I think a lot of writers experience the same thing. What happens to me is I have stories that rise up within me and that need to be told. And if I don't write them, they bother me. And they bother me until I write them. And some of them are Catholic and some of them aren't Catholic. I mean, but I'm Catholic, so I mean, that's part of I'm like you are. I mean, I converted as an adult, and I was a writer before I converted. But I think that these stories well up within me, and what keeps me writing is just I feel a need to write. And I was talking to somebody about that the other day, she was saying that she didn't feel an urge to write. And I said, well, for goodnse sake, don't write then. If you don't have that feel that's urge, I mean, there's no reason to do it except I feel in the sense that we're, as Catholics, I believe we're inspired sometimes to write things. That doesn't mean that every thought that goes through my head is directly from God, but you know, there is this inspiration, and if it's good enough, it comes out and it gets into a story. If it's not good enough, it gets thrown into the basket.
And then, what keeps you writing Catholic fiction?
My characters won't shut up.
Yeah.
No,
Yes.
seriously,
Yeah,
I'm
that's true.
not
That's
kidding.
true.
They, you know, I actually remember I was in my neighborhood. There was a doctor who she had a kid. My son would go play with her kid and everything else like that. And she was, I don't think she was very religious at all or anything, and or even a writer. I mean, she was a doctor. That's what she was. She was a physician. So we were playing. My kids were playing something like that. She goes, "So tell me about writing." So I started telling her, "Well, I have these characters that are talking in my head all the time." And you know, and they have this conversation, and ultimately it forms a, you know, a scene, and then that's how it kind of works. Is basically these people live in my head, and they won't shut up. And she's like looking at me. I mean, she thought I was probably a psycho. So, and then she probably didn't want my kid to play with hers anymore. So, but it's true. I mean, anyone who writes fiction understands that your characters are alive and living in you, and you have to give them room to have a voice. And that's where all my stories come from. It's from my characters, and they're still. I mean, and it's really kind of cool because my son he's on the autism spectrum, and he has these stories in his head too. But he verbalizes them out loud. He sits there and blah, 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 blah. You see his expressions on his face changing, and he's like telling him. I said, "Great, it's okay to tell yourself stories, but when you're out in public, you may want to tone it down a little." Yeah, it's okay. So anyway, that's the truth. I kind of let him talk.
Okay, the next question is for Erin. Name one or two authors that have inspired you.
I think one of the authors that really inspired me when I was younger was Taylor Caldwell. I just loved it. Early Taylor Caldwell. She wrote Dear Divorced Physician, and she wrote my favorite, Elizabeth. And I think later on in her career, she kind of went new agey, which a lot of us did in the 60s. But before that, she was very Catholic, and her books were character-centric, and I just fell in love with her writing, and not thinking that I was ever going to write, but I couldn't get enough of her books. I also really love Faith Finching, because again, the characters were good, and I can't stop reading her books. And unfortunately, she just passed away, so I'll have to read it.
Yeah, really. I just want to mention that one of the things my first editor recommended that I do as a new writer was read good fiction, well-written fiction. She didn't say that I needed to read Catholic fiction. There wasn't really much around 14 years ago, but other than Michael O'Brien and classics. But one of the books she recommended was Jewel. Anybody read that?
Sylvia Doran.
Yeah, very good book.
Yeah, you're talking about Sylvia's book, right?
Who?
Sylvia Doran, Jewel?
I think it's Brett.
No, it's Brett. Okay, it's the other one. Okay.
Scott.
Brett Scott.
Yeah.
There's a Catholic book by the same author,
Yeah,
same title.
Excellent,
Yeah.
excellent book. And I basically read, I also read Jodi Picoult. If you're familiar with her, she's gone very politically correct, unfortunately, and her books are really, her newer books lack the literary integrity that her first 10 or so books had, but she's a really, really good author. And really, if you want to write Catholic fiction, read books that are in your genre, I think. Good books, because they're, with all the onslaught of self-published and indie books now, there is an onslaught of sub-quality books, and you really want to read good quality books. So, anybody else with authors that have inspired you?
The first one I want to, first reader that I think was, sorry, the first author that I read and that made me want to be a writer was C.S. Lewis.
Oh,
Yes.
It's just because I have always approached everything I do like it's my job. The first writer who made me, and I don't know if anybody here, maybe Declan has, who made me see that writing is a whole lot of rip-roaring fun is Neil Stephenson. Oh my gosh, if I can have half as much fun as he does writing, this is all I want to do. It's like you just pizza. There's so much more going on underneath the fun. But I also like Tracy Chevalier. She's most well known for Girl with Pearl Earring, because that got turned into a movie. But she treats such divergent points of view and just lays them out there, and you can never quite tell what side she's on, which I like. And I think we can get a lot from that, as to, you know, not have that jab, Catholic thing, to just have it be organic and natural. People are just breathing it in with the story, and it's just kind of working on a quantum level in that way.
When I've read tons of, and been influenced and learned things from zillions of different writers, but when I'm feeling, I was sharing this with my wife the other day, when I'm feeling a need to kind of be renewed and think about writing, I almost always turn back to four writers. One is Joseph Conrad. One is Willa Cather, who draws characters like nobody. Her characters just walk off the page. One is an Irish short story writer named Shauna Fallon. And the fourth is a Brazilian writer named Machado de Assis, who's a tremendous guy. But you know, those people, no matter how many times I've reread their books, I reread them and I feel like writing again. So I can't explain why, but I do.
Anybody else?
I'll just say C.S. Lewis, Madeline L'Engle.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And G.K. Chesterton.
Oh yeah.
We made mine top three. No one really liked
Just kidding.
Yeah. The person who actually made me want to be a writer, while I'm in awe of Lewis, Chesterton, L'Engle, I never felt like I could do this sort of thing. But there is a guy who's a television writer primarily, named Joseph Michael Straczynski.
Oh, yeah.
And he did a TV show called Babylon 5, and despite being an atheist, he's a former Catholic. He really should tell that to his scripts, because I don't buy it. He was the first person I had seen, that I remember anyway, who had allowed religion as still part of the culture in the 23rd century, and my first love is science fiction. And I liked the world. I started reading his posts on writing, and it's like, you know what, maybe I can do some of this. I was 16, and I killed 2 summers writing 4,000 pages. I forgot the spacing. And it's like, crud, now I'm addicted. And I was stuck with it.
Everybody, okay, so before we open it to questions, I want to take my usual selfie.
Just taking something.
Because she,
Oh,
here you go.
other selfies.
Hang on. I'm going to take with the panel this time. Have you got everybody? I don't even care if I'm in it. Chin? No. Yeah, well, I want to be a selfie.
Then you can tag it CMN Selfie 2015.
Letitia, then take it.
It's not a selfie if you don't take it.
Maybe I'll do it, pretend like it's a selfie.
Pretend like
False.
that's
There you go.
All right, a little bit more in now. A little bit.
Toward Karen.
A bit of there, yeah. All right. Go on.
Nobody else take a picture if we're doing this. So.
I did not see.
Michael J. Straczynski. His book on screenwriting is really, really good in terms of understanding story structure and stuff like that, and also understanding Hollywood. Well, he's right. One thing that Joe did in his show was actually be fair to religion. I mean, he had monks doing something fantastic on that show with preserving knowledge, and that was just fabulous. I mean, I was like, oh my gosh, There are Benedictine monks in space. How awesome is this? And he's an atheist, so I have to give the guy credit, some props for that, because, and he is a very good writer, he really is, so, good choice.
Okay, so questions?
I'm just wondering, because I'm like not creative at all. I can't even imagine coming up with a character. I don't have those voices in my head, only my own. But I'm just wondering, like, what was it about your either childhood or whatever that developed that skill to create fiction? Like, was it books you read, or was it your upbringing, or like that creative explosion or whatever?
I'll go first.
You go first. You go first. No, you go
My
first.
sisters read to me. I mean, I was one of the young ones. Okay, we have 8 kids in my family. I was number 7 of 8. And my sisters read to me all the time, read me stories every night. In fact, I started demanding stories every night. And they'd be reading the same story, and I'd be reciting it back to them. I got to memorize these stories they'd read to me. And finally, my sister Mary said, "Oh, Ann, just shut up and tell yourself a story." This is before bedtime. Just go tell yourself a story. So that's what I started doing at night, is I started telling myself stories as I went to bed, and that became my writing. So when you read to your kids, it is like the most important thing you possibly can imagine. Read to your kids. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, this is probably, and I'm glad you went first, because this is probably answering a slightly different question. Because people sometimes say, well, I'm not a writer, but I have a kid who's a writer, and she's really creative, and she's doing all these things. What should I do her? What should I do to encourage her? I said, make her do her homework. I said, make her do all the things, like make her finish her homework, make her do all the things that she doesn't want to do.
Yes.
And build discipline, because to be a writer, to be a novelist, I should say, it means that at the end of the day, like, you are not going to get that novel done unless you have the discipline to finish it. Because, you know, all of us have started stories that are never going to get done because we're not disciplined enough. You know, and really it's that that gets you through the home stretch and through getting published is really this sort of internal discipline that almost has nothing to do with creativity, but just has, you know how to work hard. And in the end, professionally, that's been the most valuable thing that my parents did for me.
And you're going to have to do it in your free time, because nobody's going to
Yes,
pay you to do
no
it.
one will pay you to do it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. As far as upbringing is concerned, I grew up around books, and I mean, my basement was better than the local library. And there a lot of writing lists, you know, things to do to be a writer. There are some of them where there's only one word that's half the list: read. And you're talking, hi, I'm a nerd who read Mary Stewart's Merlin Quartet. I count the last one with told from Mordred's point of view as part of it. When I was in 6th grade, and The Once and Future King, and by the time I got to freshman year of high school, I was finishing a Tom Clancy novel a week, and I mean, The Doorstops. I confused my English teacher no end, but in order to write stories, it helps to read them.
Thank you. I'm going to ask something to include Michelle in this. She wrote a novel, Rachel's Nutrition, that ended up on number 2 Amazon Women. Now, that's not Catholic, but I couldn't, number 1, excuse me. I couldn't think of a more Catholic book. I mean, there's a conversion and St. Teresa. So how the heck did it have that broad of appeal? No message to everybody. We talk about running for Catholic audiences, but that obviously reached beyond. What's the secret? Besides
true.
Right. I mean,
It was true. I mean, it reached in and grabbed your soul, and it was true. It spoke to pain. Is why, and in women, we suffer a lot of pain in our lives. We don't talk about it, and her book spoke to that.
there's
Do
the
you agree with that?
universality of pain, and they're even willing to accept the Catholic solution. Because we have to choose. Why aren't we appealing for more? I'm just saying this in a general way. Is that people are so close-minded now? And why is everyone's excited about Claudia O'Connor's diaries coming around?
Well, it might have grabbed it. It was certainly the cover was more evocative of something more secular, I think, in a way. That would, maybe that's it. Sometimes it is.
So do you have a feeling?
But I don't know. What would you say? What do you say, Michelle? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is because it was very emotional, and I think that it made women talk about it. But the odd thing about that is Death Panels and Rachel's Contrition came out a month apart. And I was all into promoting death panels when John called me and told me Rachel's confession had been released, and I was like, okay, I'll worry about that next month. And I totally ignored it. So it wasn't anything that I did, and I was like, what? I kept watching the list, I was like, this doesn't make sense. But that's not, people talking is what sells books.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, promotion helps,
Yes.
but nothing is going to do it more than somebody telling somebody else, you've got to read this book.
Yeah.
That's what sells books. So you've got to touch somebody.
Yeah.
And if you read an author and you like their books, write a review.
Yeah, right.
Please, God,
The
yes.
best
Yes.
thing you could do for an author is to write a good review.
True.
Yeah, maybe I have this wrong, so you guys can correct me. But my impression is that Catholic publishers in particular run from fiction.
Because it doesn't make money. It's because it doesn't make money. It's very
And
simple.
that's what I'm trying to get my brain around. It's like, why is there such a dearth in the marketplace of truth-based fiction, meaning faith-filled fiction?
I'd like to comment on that.
Yeah.
My publishing company is probably a little different than the big publishers. My nonfiction, I can't see.
Speak up.
Sorry. I have a publishing company, Folk River Publishing, and my nonfiction, the 2 books that we have for nonfiction, do not sell. It's the fiction that sells. Now, granted, my company sells mostly Kindle books. We do sell print books as well, but we're able to offer books at $3.99 and $4.99 rather than at $19.99 or whatever in terms of the Kindle. And my fiction has always sold more, but I'm not the usual publisher. Maybe Regina can comment on that as well. Do you don't sell nonfiction, do you?
No,
Right.
we don't. Well, just our conversion story, which was
Yeah.
in your book, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
some personal, obviously.
Yeah.
And I'd say, and I'm speaking is that, like, obviously, I'm running a fiction, publishing company, and we're sort of kind of making a living. But the reason I know, just having worked for other Catholic publishers and talked to other Catholic publishers, why don't you open a fiction line? And well, because it doesn't make money. And when times that's really what it is. So that's why I said it comes down to the buying habits of Catholics. Catholic publishers, most of them have no inherent bias. They are not uptight. They are not anything. Some of them would love to do it, but the fact is they also have to pay their employees. And if they publish a book and no one buys it, no one talks about it, no one recommends it, then they're just like, okay, and their accountant said, that made money, we lost money on that. They say, okay, sell them to the bargain basement, $5 a piece, we're never doing that again.
Is it because the bookstore won't carry it?
No, and I know bookstores who will go out on a limb. You'll talk to bookstore owners, and they'll say, yeah, I tried fiction and nobody bought it. So that's why I said it really is a matter of the buying habits of Catholics. I just want to say that be very clear that is the issue. You do not have to change the minds of Catholic publishers. I find most of them are women. You don't have to change the minds of Catholics. You don't have to say Catholics are too uptight. You just have to get them that when they want to kick back and be entertained, go to their Catholic bookstore, or go to your website, or go check out what's on CatholicFiction.net, or freeforcatholics.com, because we're going to start opening up, free samples of fiction and stuff like that. Get them to change the buying habits, and that will be the tide that raises all the boats.
Regina, how do you think we can change the buying habits? Because habits are so hard to break.
Do you think a
I think
different
that-
distribution model would help? I mean, like, for instance, if we were
It
able
would.
to offer it to them in the parishes.
Well, okay, if we want to look at history, the Christian fiction market took off with 2 books. Love Comes Softly and This Present Darkness by Frank Peretti. They had a bestseller. When they had a bestseller, all of a sudden it became a viable option. What we need is a Catholic bestseller. We need a book that is so good that even secular people read it and are like, wow, you gotta read this thing, it's so good. Because really, it's word of mouth that sells books.
So was it being sold in Barnes and Noble?
Oh yeah, that's why. Basically, that was the breakout novel for the Christian industry, and then the industry suddenly turned around and said, okay, we'll hire a fiction editor. Okay, we'll start putting on that. We're going to put our money towards this because we've just proven that these things can sell. So I think we're just preparing the ground. We're just waiting for the moment. I think the next thing that's going to happen is that somebody will write that bestseller. And we've all got to be promised as authors not to be jealous of them. And, because the fact is, if there is a bestseller, no matter who wrote it or publishes it, it will benefit us all.
That's right.
which is why I've always been behind the Catholic Writers Guild and the Catholic Writers Conference, because writing, we tend to get very jealous of each other because ours is a very solitary profession. But this is an event for us to build community and to support each other and to together raise our standards of quality and get ideas and work so that we can prepare the ground for this to happen. So it's going to happen. I mean, I have no doubt that it's going to happen. But we're still going to have gay marriage and divorce and all these other things to work on. But at some point in the next 20 years, someone is going to publish Catholic fiction and make money doing it, and then the whole game will change. I have no doubt that that's going to happen.
Okay, our time is just about over, so what is the actual time?
It is 3 exactly.
Okay, so what should we do about that? Any more questions? So,
Can you say a prayer now?
what?
You can say a prayer now.
We could say a prayer.
To end.
To end.
Can I have one comment to what
Yes.
what you were saying? I started in the CBA, the Christian market, and their books are like, you have so many rules about what you can and can't include in books. And those readers only go to that market. And that's the huge difference, which is basically what she's saying, is Catholics will read anything. So we have like a broader market, but you can't get them to turn around and look at ours, whereas they will only read what CBA produces. They are faithful readers that don't want any smut in their whatever they read. But I think because of all the stuff that's happening right now, this is a big opportunity to say, if you want to have books that aren't going to be pushing homosexual marriage in your face and gender options in your face,
We have a culture building opportunity.
this is the time to do it, right now.
Yeah.
There is, I think, one more question. Do we have time for one more?
Oh, yeah.
You're next here.
I am.
I want to ask Regina if she's saying that we should go to the secular publishers and not to the Catholic publishers.
Absolutely. If you can write a Catholic novel and get a secular publisher to publish it, why not? Why not? I mean, it's a time-honored tradition if you look at all the great Catholic novelists that have been produced. And the fact is, Catholic readers are buying secular fiction. I mean, personally, I'd love to be the one to publish that bestseller and get that money. But the fact is, like I said, it's the tide that rises, it will raise all the boats. Do you know what I mean? So absolutely, and sometimes I'll say to people, like, look, this isn't right to my press, but take it to the secular world. Because if you take it to the secular world, you get a big name, you get a platform, you're going to help us all. So, and that's where the best and the greatest of the Catholic novelists have cut their teeth, has always been in the secular world. So I say go for it.
Get to work, Michelle.
Yes!
There are just Catholic writers who have written bestsellers. So what are you talking about when, haven't there been, like Catholic, so what are you saying?
J.R. Tolkien, novel of the century, 20th century.
But I mean, what are you saying, like?
Just do what God is calling you to do, and be as good as you possibly can, and find the right audience for it.
No, I just meant, like, what does it mean to be a bestseller? Because I thought there were Catholic authors that were bestsellers out there. There's not?
Oh yeah, but just
Are they Catholic?
but they're not.
They're not really.
Catholic fiction, define Catholic fiction as writing, a Catholic author who is writing about subjects that are interesting to Catholics. That's how I would define Catholic fiction.
Very broad.
Yeah, I mean, really, that's the genre that we're talking about here. Faith, yeah.
Faithful to the magisterium.
That faithful to the magisterium, yeah, obviously,
I mean, because some of the most popular Catholic authors now, James A. Burke, I love, spectacular.
Right.
And he has a lot of Catholic themes and a lot of wonderful spiritual themes, but he definitely is not faithful to the church.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean they have to be carrying rosaries around and praying all the time.
David Oyer, let's see.
Oh yeah, there's a lot.
Thank you very much to our authors.
And have you there to interview more fiction authors instead of just nonfiction? You do that today, right?
Well, not today.
On the book market.
They're really,
So
obviously.
there's a lot of nonfiction.
He's willing to do it. Like I said, I don't find anybody out there who's opposed to it.
Good.
So I said, but we just need to write better stuff.
Okay.